How's it going, you guys? So whether you already have a PlayStation 5 or you're still waiting to be able to snatch one up, or maybe you're just interested, I thought it'd be cool to go over some more hidden and lesser known features that haven't really been talked about as much. So if you already do have a PlayStation 5, you can take advantage of these now, or when you do get one, you'll be able to hit the ground running and fully take advantage of it. So first up is the ability to customize the control center bar that pops up when you press the PlayStation button. So it's going to show things like the network and the audio settings, stuff like that. But if you press the PlayStation button and then the options button, it'll actually pop up checkboxes beneath each one that you can select whether to enable it or disable it the next time you press the button. So if you find yourself always going to the mute settings or something like that, you can just enable it. And if you never need the network settings, you can just disable that, and it'll just make it a lot more cleaner and only show what you need usually. Now, next up, number 2 is something I am so glad they finally added, and it is the playtime tracker. And here's the best part, it actually will show you previous games played time. So they were keeping track of this even for PS4 games the whole time, and now they just let you see how much time you put into that, and also for friends as well. It's really easy to get to it. You just go to your profile and then the list of games, and it'll show right next to all of them along with all your trophies and stuff like that. So it's really good that they finally added this. It's finally catching up with PC on Steam, and you can now give your friends a hard time if they still suck after having 100 hours put in the game. You can kind of be like, hey, what's going on there? So just a cool little feature, sorely needed. All right, now moving on, the next feature I haven't seen too many people talking about is the Accolades System. It's a new system that shows up on your profile. Basically, when you're playing a multiplayer game, as long as the game supports it, after a match, you'll have the ability to give people accolades, basically compliments that will then show up on your profile. So you can see if you go to your profile, it'll show you if you have any. I do not have any, but it still shows you basically what all these are for, kind of like a description. And it says you can anonymously give someone an accolade after an online match, and it's just kind of to promote good characteristics, I guess. So more specifics on how it works, it says you can only give one accolade per match, and you can only give it to non-friends. So it is kind of cool. It's a little bit more rare. You can't just spam it to everyone. You know, if someone actually goes and chooses to give you one, that's kind of nice. Also, you can only give to each individual player once every 12 hours. So theoretically, if you come across this person again, you can give them a second one as long as it's more than 12 hours later. And there are 3 different accolades right now you can give. One is for being helpful, one is for being welcoming, and the third one is for being a good sport. They might add more, I imagine, later, but these are the 3 right now. Apparently how it works is, depending on what game you're playing, each individual game will have its own interface for how to present them. I believe like with NBA, you can press L3 or something on someone's name to give them an accolade, but each game will be a little bit different, and it will have to, I guess, support that. I'm not 100% sure if you can do it through the PlayStation UI through recent players. I've been playing Demon's Souls mostly, and that does not actually show who you've recently played with, so I can't give accolades or try that out. But from my understanding, most games that do have multiplayer should have some way to give an accolade, although it might be a little bit less obvious. Still, just a cool little system. It'll be interesting to see if they kind of give you any rewards, maybe give you a boost to your level or something on the PlayStation Network, stuff like that, kind of like trophies do. We'll have to see. All right, next up is a pretty quick one. So you might know that on the controller, you can press the microphone button to mute the microphone that's built into the controller, but actually, if you hold down the microphone button, it'll actually mute all the system audio. So if you're trying to listen to someone talking in the other room, you can't hear them, you can just hold down the microphone button right on the controller, it'll quiet everything down, and then it's just a little bit more convenient than maybe reaching for the TV controller, for example. All right, next up, having to do with trophies. So you probably knew that previously, every time you get a trophy, it will take a screenshot, kind of to save that moment. Well, now, by default, it'll also record a short video clip along with that trophy. So it'll take a screenshot and a video too. And funny enough, you might not realize it'll also record your microphone. So if you're celebrating or something getting a trophy, you can remember that it'll show up in the video. In the settings, you can disable this, and you can also choose either to have it for 15 seconds or 30 seconds. I actually chose to disable this because there's a lot of trophies I literally have no care about getting, like the little bronze trophies, and I think it'll just take up more hard drive space, especially considering the PS5 hard SSD is not exactly huge, so I'd rather just not care about it. Maybe if they give the option to always store the video clips and screenshots on an external drive. I haven't found a way to do that. It might be possible though, then that would be something I would just have stored elsewhere, but I'd rather not have it take up space on the drive. You might be different though. All right, next up, you now have the ability to slightly customize each screenshot you take. So you can do this by going to the media gallery, and there's a couple ways to get to this. You can either get it through the list of apps, or if you press the share button, you can then go to media gallery. But anyway, once you select into a screenshot, you can then choose to edit it, and you can either crop it, which in that case, you just basically zoom in and out, and then you can move around the crop. Or the other option is you can actually add text to the screenshot. You have a couple options in terms of the font style and also the color, the size, that sort of thing. You can move it around. So just kind of cool that if you want to do some basic rudimentary editing of a screenshot, you can do that now. All right, the next feature is actually kind of several put into one, but it's the ability to set default graphics and performance in game settings. So you can get to this by going to the settings and then save data and game app settings and then game presets. And you can see that if a game supports it, it will actually honor these settings that you choose as default. So if you always like to play on the hardest difficulty, you can, for example, go into difficulty, set it to hardest, or just keep it on the easiest or game default and then choose in the game. Obviously, you will be able to choose whatever you want in the game. It'll just kind of make it a little bit more convenient. Also, you can choose the performance or resolution mode. So usually this means if you choose resolution mode, it's going to be 4K, probably 30 FPS. But if you do performance mode, it'll be 60 FPS usually, and then either 1440p or 1080p, or in the case of Demon's Souls, it's actually dynamic 4K. So basically, in some parts, it'll probably lower the resolution where necessary to make sure it stays at 60 FPS. You also have a couple other options for like first person and third person camera controls, whether it reverses the vertical movement or not. And then finally, for subtitles and audio, you can choose whether you always want to have subtitles on by default or not. I usually like to have subtitles on, so I'll probably put that on. And then you can also choose the default language. So if you're someone who goes in and changes all these settings all the time, this should make it a lot more easy. All right, next up is another sort of small one, but you now have the ability to create a wish list in the PlayStation Store. This is surprisingly not a feature before, but now if you go to a game page on the store page, you can just add it to the wish list, and then you can access that list of games you're watching anytime. All right, we got a couple more. Next up is another multi-parter, and it is more accessibility options in the settings. Now, I'm not 100% sure which of these are all new and which ones aren't, but there's plenty of them in here we can just quickly go over. Like, you can invert the colors if you want for some reason. You can do color correction if you're colorblind, and it'll apply a color filter. You can also increase the text size or make it bolder if you prefer that. And you can also have higher contrast, so it'll kind of darken the background from my understanding and lighten up the text, that sort of thing, depending on the situation. You can also change the scrolling text speed if you find it to be too fast, too slow. And then finally, you can do reduced motion. So if you find the animations all over the place being really annoying, you can reduce those. All right, the final hidden feature, this isn't exactly new, but still good to know about, it is the safe boot menu. Like most other devices and consoles and computers, there is an option if you mess something up, you can boot into the safe mode by making sure the PlayStation 5 is fully off, not in rest mode, and then you simply hold down the power button, it'll beep once when you first press it, and then keep holding it. About 7 seconds later, it'll beep again, and then boot into safe mode. And then once you're in safe mode, it will require you to actually plug in a controller via USB to be able to use it. Again, there's not anything super cool or amazing in here, just stuff that's good to know about. So the first option is restart PS5. That literally is just a normal startup. You can change the video output. This is really good if you have no video or you messed it up and it's misbehaving, you can't get anything to display, and because you can't see anything, you can't change it back. You can have it just restart by default. For number 3, you could also update the system software either manually with a USB, so if you have no internet connection, that's useful, and also you can do it via internet. For number 4, it restores the default settings, just kind of like it says, although it will keep all the profiles and stuff on there. Number 5 is rebuild database. This is not something you will need to do unless it says you need to do it because something got corrupted, so definitely just leave that one alone unless you see it pop up saying it needs to be done. And then for 6 and 7, these will reset the PS5. It's basically like a factory reset. All user data and all data really will be completely wiped, set to factory defaults. And then the only difference is with 7, it'll also allow you to install a system update at the same time. So definitely good to just at least know about this system menu and how to get to it. And probably the most common situation is if you accidentally set the wrong video mode and then you can't change it back. you can do it with this. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If I missed any settings, let me know down in the comments, and also be sure to check down there because someone might have pointed out something that I didn't say. If you guys want to keep watching, I also recently made a hidden settings video for the new generation Xbox Series X. So same idea, you can just click on that right there if you want to check that out. So again, thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.